For years, we've been terrified of animatronics. But have you ever once considered that maybe, just maybe, the animatronics are the ones who should be afraid of us? Internet, welcome to Food Theory, the show that knows that you can't spell animatronic without P-I-Z-Z-A. Hold on, in case you're new here, let me catch you up. I like pizza, I like animatronics, and I like murder. Alright, probably should have phrased that last one better, but you know what, we're just gonna roll with it. Anyway, there's a natural order to the universe that says whenever robotic animals are inside a dining establishment, horrible tragedy shall follow. Enter Chuck E. Cheese. Since opening back in 1977, Chuck E. Cheese has been the fever dream of kids everywhere. The place is basically a 6-year-old's equivalent of having a birthday in Vegas. Another round of sodas over here because somebody just set a new high score in Whack-a-Frog and I am rolling in those tickets, baby. Here's a token for your trouble, sweetums. Also, while you're at it, hit me up with some of those balls. I got a date with Big Bertha tonight. That's the arcade game where you throw balls into a woman's mouth until she reaches the point of obesity. Candy, games, pizza, I mean, what's not to love? Oh yeah, them. You see, Chuck E. Cheese was the creation of Nolan Bushnell, co-founder of the video game company Atari. The idea was to create a restaurant that doubled as a carnival, a place where families could play together while also experiencing the newfangled entertainment medium of video games for the first time. The reason for it being a pizza place was threefold. Pizza was easy to make and required few ingredients, it took a while to cook, which allowed families to spend time playing games, and 3, you can't really screw up pizza. Well, until of course your restaurant produces some misshapen pies and is suddenly suspected of recycling old slices from other tables. Something that we've talked about in a previous episode. If you go check it out, make sure you say hi to Amy down in the comments. She'll appreciate it. She was a trooper for testing out way too many pizzas in that episode. Anyway, the animatronic performers that became synonymous with Chuck E. Cheese were more of a byproduct of Nolan's fascination with Disney, specifically the Country Bear Jamboree show. Clearly, the strategy was working for Walt over at his Disneyland park, so why not bring those same robots to budget-conscious families that wanted entertainment but couldn't make it all the way out to Southern California? And the rest, as they say, is history, living on in the collective nightmares of 80s era children and Gen Z indie horror games. Eventually, home video game consoles as well as the lackluster, potentially recycled pizza got the better of the franchise and it went bankrupt in 2020, nearly $1 billion in debt. I think most of us are aware of at least some part of that story, right? But what I think you may not know is the lore of these characters, because there is lore, and let me tell you, it is dark. For years, we've been talking about how scary Chuck E. Cheese is, but in reality, Chucky isn't the one on stage that you should be most afraid of. In fact, once you know the real story, it's clear that Chucky is the actual victim here. A literal hostage that's being forced to stand up on stage and perform, and when he stops, he dies. So grab a napkin and start dabbing up the excess grease off your misshapen pizza as I tell you the tragic tale of Chucky and the man who's murdering his co-stars. Our story begins with a coyote. You see, Nolan Bushnell's family carnival restaurant wasn't always meant to have a rodent as their mascot. As the story goes, the main mascot was originally meant to be a coyote, but when Bushnell learned that the costume that he had bought for his main character was actually that of a rat, well, he had to do some quick thinking. He decided to rebrand the entire thing from Coyote Pizza to Rick Rat's Pizza. Now, obviously that's gonna cause you a couple of problems since, I don't know about you, but most restaurants don't really want to associate with rats. So his marketing team suggested doing something that they thought might be a bit more appealing to hungry customers. Chuck E. Cheese. Sure, he's still a rat, but now at least they're not throwing the fact that he's a disease-ridden rodent in your face. Apparently they went with Chuck E. Cheese as the name because it forced people to smile when they said it. And let's be honest, forcing a smile is about as much happiness as you're gonna find in this place anyway, so good call! It's also worth noting that Chucky didn't start off as the hip skateboarding mouse that he is today. Instead, he was a rat from New Jersey, smoking a cigar and roasting the other members of the animatronic cast. A collection of characters that feels so random it was like they were playing a drunken game of Mad Libs. You have yourself a chef, a dog, a pig, alright, all that makes sense, but also a purple alien, the moon, a lineup of singing mops, a literal building, a hippo with jiggle physics, and an old man known simply as Mr. Cooch. Part of the reason so many feel out of place here is that they were obtained from a rival animatronic pizza place and then retrofitted into the style of Chuck E. Cheese. And let me tell you, the videos online of how to restyle these characters is scarier than anything FNAF has produced in the last 7 years.
Welcome to the concept unification Exploitation installation tape. This tape is meant to supplement the installation manual, not replace it. Now Mitzi, starting with her sweater, wig, dicky, mask, ears, pigtail mount, hands, skirt, shoes, and leg fur.
So that's the origins of Charles Entertainment Cheese and his gang of mascots, but what about the actual lore here? Well, back in June of 2017, the news blog Insider reached out to CEC Entertainment, Chuck E. Cheese's parent company, to see if Charles Entertainment Cheese was indeed the character's official name. Christelle DuPont, public relations manager for CEC Entertainment, informed them that since there was never a birth certificate, the company couldn't actually be sure. Which, I mean, I guess, but also, I don't think that's the way it works here. Show me Ronald McDonald's birth certificate. Is the Burger King truly royalty, or is he merely a usurper to the throne? Anyway, while she couldn't officially answer the name question, she did point everyone to an online book detailing Chuck E. Cheese's backstory. And this is a treasure trove of information that will blow your mind. As the story goes, Chucky was an orphan mouse at the St. Marinera orphanage. He loved to sing happy birthday to all the other orphans. In a cruel twist, because he was an orphan, no one actually knew his birthday, so they just gave up. No one even bothered to try and find it or give him an honorary birthday or anything, because that's what happens when you're an orphan. Hard knock life and all that. TLDR, no one ever sang or celebrated for the mouse.
Well, this is gonna be my personality for the rest of my life.
Outside of singing and orphan, Chuck had two other defining character traits. He loved pizza and playing Pong. Thank you, Daddy Atari. That skill set is totally gonna age well. But of course, because he was an orphan, he was constantly struck by the feeling that something in his life was missing, like parents. So one day after winning $50 from a Pong tournament, I kid you, I am not making this stuff up, Chuck bought himself a bus ticket to New York and ran away. Having no place to stay, he found shelter above a pizza restaurant owned by Chef Pasqually P. Pieplate. One night, when Chucky thought that Pasqually had already left, he went down to explore the restaurant, only to be immediately discovered by the chef. Pasqually flies into a rage, chases Chuck around the kitchen, and then corners him and raises a rolling pin, ready to strike down the death blow. Finish him! Chucky, cowering in fear, knees shaking, facing his final seconds of life, does the one and only thing that has ever brought him joy over the years. He sings. Upon hearing that the mouse could sing, Pasqually lowers his rolling pin, and then decides to pull a capitalism and exploit the mouse's talent for his own personal gain. As the story goes, quote, Pasqually was so shocked he dropped the rolling pin. A mouse that can sing? My restaurant is saved! I'm gonna make you a star! He renames his restaurant Chuck E. Cheese's, home of the world-famous singing mouse, and literally forces Chucky to perform there. The story then ends with this line, and Chucky hasn't stopped singing or smiling since. Well, yeah, because his name forces you to smile. We've already covered that. But in all seriousness, the parenthesis around the word smiling here is giving me a real serious cry for help vibe. So that's the story of Chuck E. Cheese, an orphan rat rebranded into a mouse who's basically being held hostage and forced to sing to stay alive. Notice that Pasqually specifically calls out that his restaurant is saved after hearing Chuck E. Cheese sing, meaning that it was already on its way out. Chucky was Pasqually's meal ticket. After all, notice how he didn't take any appropriate measures when he found Chucky was a runaway orphan? He didn't do anything like, you know, alert officials that he'd found a runaway kid or make any attempt at contacting the original orphanage. In Pasqually's eyes, Chucky was a means to an end, a way of getting famous. He's an animal with a talent for music, and if he ever stops attracting customers, would it really be that hard to believe that Pasqually might just decide to finish the job? It's also made clear that Pasqually isn't paying the members of his band anything beyond keeping your own life. In the direct-to-video movie Chuck E. Cheese in the Galaxy 5000, we see a kid who needs some serious cash for his family's tractor.
What's the problem?
He needed some dough. He needed cash. Charlie, he needed $50,000.
Notice how little the performers are able to cough up to help him.
Come on, gang, cough it up. No holding back.
I've got $2.
I've got a $5.
Also notice who doesn't lay any money on the table, Pasqually.
Why do you need us, Pasqually? You've got more dough than anyone in town.
They even make mention that the performers could get jobs to help them earn money, meaning that standing up on stage performing under Pasqually's rule doesn't pay.
How are we going to get that kind of money?
We could all get jobs. I saw a help wanted sign down at the Chicken Palace.
It's here that we get this gem of information.
Pasqually, do you have any ideas on how we can come up with $50,000 for Charlie's aunt and uncle?
You could pay him a fair wage. That's an idea.
I'm glad you asked that question, Chucky. In a few days, a big races are gonna take place.
The Galaxy Galaxy 5000 is an interplanetary race on the planet Orion.
They can participate in a dangerous intergalactic space race. Didn't see that one coming, did ya? And despite it being dangerous, Pasqually is more than eager to sign him up for it. Now, talking about just this movie alone would merit its own video. Let's just say that everyone is very excited to be hanging out with each other. Chickens with mice, mice with humans, humans with multiple humans, chickens with multiple humans. The adult time relations between characters is a bigger plot point than you'd expect for a badly CGI'd film extension to a children's restaurant mascot.
Ooh, Chucky.
Race car drivers are so cool.
Get it? Fair and square.
No, I've got it. I'd appreciate it if you kept this to yourself.
I didn't know that you were taken.
Like one of the guys, right, Helen?
Oh, maybe you could say that today's race separated the mice from the men.
Sorry about your little mousy friend.
We like stealing his girlfriends and beating him in the races.
Side note, just wanted to take a minute to point out that Jasper the dog here is reading Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. What even is this movie? Anyway, back to the point. Pasqually is holding these innocent animals hostage and is more than willing to sacrifice their safety if it means money for him. And that's not all. He's always wiping away any evidence of his misdeeds. Remember, he's in control of the company. This is his restaurant and his business. So is it weird that 2 months after Chuck E. Cheese's orphan story came out, one that was written by Chucky himself, the restaurant's official YouTube channel releases a video showcasing the exact same story, except with one huge difference. This one paints Pasqually in a positive light.
Found a place that served great pizza made by a funny chef with a mustache. His name was Pasqually.
My restaurant was losing money. I was about to close my doors. Chucky offered to help me out.
Oh yeah? He offered to help you out? Was that before or after you threatened to bludgeon him with a rolling pin? And don't you for a minute think that this is some sort of corporate rebrand or anything. This is Pasqually actively gaslighting us and Chucky. In another video on the YouTube channel, the cast is looking at a photo album of past memories. In it, we get this.
Remember that time we went to the moon, eating moon cheese. That was a really good time.
Wait, we never...
There we are, helping a Benjamin Franklin discover electricity.
We never...
It's all lies. The photo album is filled with lies. Pasqually is feeding them false memories. For now, at least. You see, I think Chucky's days are numbered. Pasqually now knows that his star mouse is becoming a liability, not only telling the dirty secrets of his backstory, but also drawing in fewer customers by the year with his singing. That's why in mid-2020, Pasqually decided to relaunch his own self-named brand, Pasqually's Pizza and Wings. It's the same food as Chuck E. Cheese, but delivered. A ghost kitchen that is owned and operated and starring him. Pasqually saw that Chucky's side of the story had the potential of bringing bad press. He knew that having his name linked to the attempted murder of everyone's favorite mouse wouldn't be so good, so Pasqually did the one thing that he could do. He used the company's platforms to release a version of the story which painted him in a better light, all while building his own personal brand on the side. And the true motive for all of it? Well, as we see on the website for Chuck E. Cheese in Jordan, the country of Jordan, Pasqually's a man who dreams of being the best pizza maker and entertainer the world has ever seen. But for years, he's played second fiddle to the rats. No more! Chucky served his purpose in the beginning. He was a way for Pasqually to get famous. But now that Chuck E. Cheese's brand is known the world over, it's time for Pasqually to make his move. He knows that he can't achieve his dreams if Chucky stays in the picture, but he also just can't get rid of him either without people noticing. He needs a way to get out of Chucky's shadow without drawing too much attention. Relaunching Pasqually's Pizza would be his only chance at branching out, a way that he could finally shake the Chuck E. Cheese moniker and make a name for himself before finally closing the curtain on the rat. I mean, let's be honest, over the years, the Chuck E. Cheese brand has had a total of 32 different members go missing from the lineup. Where'd they all go? Pasqually sure seemed in a hurry to get rid of them. And isn't it weird that Helen, Jasper, and Mr. Munch didn't call out the fake memories when they were looking at that album earlier? It's because they know better. They know that they have to play along. That's how they've lasted so long. But Chuck, he's the one calling out the mistruths. He's the one out of the loop. And pretty soon, he's gonna be cut out of a lot more than that. But hey, do you like getting free stuff just for buying things? I mean, you're already spending money, so why not get even more out of that purchase? Well, our sponsor for today's episode, Fetch, is a totally free app that lets you earn rewards on literally anything and everything you buy. Here's what you do. Whenever you're out and you buy something, you can use Fetch to scan your receipt with your phone. As long as the receipt isn't older than 2 weeks, it'll be fine. It works. It's even easier with online shopping. You can just let the Fetch app scan your emails and automatically search for any and all eligible e-receipts. And then bam! You earn points that you can then use to get all kinds of rewards, including gift cards for Starbucks, Walmart, Amazon. Personally, I've actually been using my rewards for gift cards to Chipotle, which seems odd, but may or may not be relevant to a future food theory. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I'll let you theorize about that one down in the comments. Scanning the receipts and redeeming points is super quick and easy. Just take some pictures of your receipts with your phone and Fetch handles the rest, all in a matter of seconds. And when I say that Fetch works on basically anything, I mean anything. Receipts from brick and mortar retail stores, it works. Restaurants, done. E-receipts and Amazon purchases, totally fine. It even works for Chuck E. Cheese receipts, which, you know, is gonna be nice if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're buying 12 separate pies to see whether they're reusing other customers' pizzas. Don't know if you've ever found yourself in that very specific situation, but in case you do, Fetch is there for you. So if you want to get more out of the money that you're already spending, go download Fetch by clicking the link in the description. Make sure you use the code FOODTHEORY, FOODTHEORY, and you'll get 5,000 points when you scan your very first receipt. Redemptions on Fetch actually start at 5,000 points, so you can get a reward right now just by signing up using that code. That's Food Theory, FOODTHEORY, and getting 5,000 points just for scanning any receipt that you just have lying around the house. So go, reward yourself today, and as always, remember, it's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit.